Well, thank you, Dr. Saputro, for your introduction. And hello, greetings from New York City. And I hope all of you are staying safe and doing well in this time of COVID. And it is my honor and privilege to be invited here to speak about AIC therapy. Now, AIC therapy stands for anti-orbital ionic calcium therapy. And this is the world's first ionic calcium-based therapy. And today we're going to be talking about the science behind AIC, its physiological effects, and some of the clinical results, what kind of effect AIC, ionic calcium therapy, can bring, the natural healing power of our body. So let's get started. It's amazing how we know so little about calcium. Calcium is actually the most studied, and yet still the most difficult and misunderstood nutrient. Why? Because if you are vitamin A deficient, give vitamin A, you're okay. Vitamin C deficient, give vitamin C. But calcium deficiency, if you give calcium, you may end up with more problems. That's why it is most difficult and misunderstood nutrient, because we know that as we age, we see that our bone is emptying out. And then we think just putting calcium in our system will resolve it. But that's not so, right? As we all know already. Calcium plays many important roles in our body. Muscle and heart contraction, bone and teeth, of course, and blood clotting, stem cell regulation, that's a biggie there, neurotransmitter, it's a second messenger, hormone secretion depends on calcium homeostasis, enzyme activation, our immune system, how correctly it responds, also is a calcium-dependent process, cell membrane stability, all the cell functions and DNA replication requires precise level of ionic calcium level. Now, this is what ionic calcium does in our body, right? It regulates the hormone in our system, as well as all these cellular processes require precise regulation of calcium concentration. That's why we have 4 parathyroid glands, right? It's a redundant system to maintain precise level of extracellular and intracellular level of calcium. Calcium ion also plays significant and leading role in regulating other mineral functions in our body. So if the calcium level is off, we can kind of expect that other minerals not going to be working perfectly as we desire. That's why our body tries to maintain the good amount of calcium in ionic form. Right? Now you can see that I've been using Ca2+, this is ionic calcium, and this is the only physiologically active form of calcium our body uses, right? But then it's about 50% in our blood serum. About 45% is protein-bound calcium and 5% inorganic calcium. Protein calcium, inorganic calcium has to be converted into ionic form for our body to use it. But when our body is actually experiencing calcium deficiency, it is not feeling deficient for protein calcium or inorganic calcium, but it's actually feeling deficient of ionic calcium. But then not all the calcium they're putting in your system goes in ionic form. In fact, all the calcium, whether you're taking from, it doesn't matter what kind of supplement you're getting, right? Absorption rate may be different. But whether you're getting from your diet, whether broccoli or spinach, doesn't matter. All the calcium has to be digested. You need strong stomach acid with the help of peptides and vitamin D. It is imported into our body as protein-bound calcium, as you can see here. Now, protein-bound calcium is physiologically inactive, right? It cannot just go in and trigger our body. Certain condition has to be met in our body in order for us to utilize this protein-bound calcium, turn it into ionic calcium so that our body can utilize it, right? So it is ionic calcium that's the key, right? But there is a huge calcium paradox. Why? Because all calcium enters our body in protein-bound form, but calcium must be in ionic form to be physiologically active. Okay, so here is a good example. Space astronauts, they go into space station and stay there for about 6 months, and they come down with 14 to 30% their bone strength lost. Why? Not because their diet is lacking calcium. They're getting plenty of calcium in their system. But in space, there is no gravity. So their bone is not as challenged. When your bone is not as challenged, then we cannot fully utilize this protein-bound calcium. So body still needs that ionic calcium and reaches out to your bones to break down your bones to get that ionic calcium. So it is not how much calcium you're putting in your system, is whether you are able to utilize it or not. Our body is deficient for ionic calcium, right? But then as we grow older, we know that not only our stomach acid is getting weaker, so we're not really getting the calcium in our system, but then even if you do, because of lack of exercise and sedentary lifestyle, we cannot really utilize the calcium that well. Plus with stress and fear and all this uncertainty that's going on right now, and putting processed food in that makes our body more acidic, we're actually using up too much ionic calcium, and we are constantly in ionic calcium deficiency. And that's why we're breaking down our bones even more. So should we take calcium supplements? Well, it actually comes with a lot of side effects too. Acid rebound, kidney damage, vascular calcification, mineral imbalance. Not only that, are we able to really utilize this, all the calcium we're pumping in? In fact, there has been many studies that shows that if you've been taking calcium supplements faithfully, then you actually increase the risk of heart attack. And also, as we age, we have this declining, not just a sedentary lifestyle, but declining of hormones, whether it's sex hormones, osteocalcium production, growth hormone production, calmagin production, all of that's related, protein related to calcium is declining. That's why we're starting to lose more calcium from our bones. So calcium paradox is that, all right, we need the ionic calcium, so we get it from our bone, but as we age, our parathyroid hormone becomes inefficient in its action, and it actually takes too much calcium, more than needed, from our bones. And guess what? All that excess calcium coming out, ionic calcium, some of that is going to be excreted, but then a lot of that is also being deposited in our body in many different forms, whether it's calcification of joints, cartilage, other tissues, bone spurs, plaque in the blood vessels, right? It causes metabolic syndrome, and even is known to cause gingivitis, colon cancer, even Alzheimer's disease. Why? Because calcification happens in cellular level. That's where the most important, the calcium homeostasis is. Right? Because our cells communicate through what's called calcium signaling. It's calcium oscillation that's responsible for precise regulation of all the cellular processes. But if you get too much calcium deposited in the cellular reservoirs, right, like endoplasmic reticulum and also mitochondria, then everything starts to break down because communication breaks down. And that's where our focus is, because that is actually considered to be the leading cause of aging, even cancer, right? And all the aging-related degenerative diseases. So let's kind of focus on cellular calcification and diseases. This is where we need to look at what happens in cellular level when we start to lose our bone mass, right? Dr. Thomas Levy, in his book, Death by Calcium, he says that all chronic degenerative diseases feature increased extracellular and intracellular levels of calcium. And he said, it is precisely the chronic loss of calcium from its large bony reservoirs that continually feeds the excess presence of calcium elsewhere in the body. So when our bone density goes down, right, when you're in osteopenia and osteoporosis, don't just look at fracture risk. All the calcium is actually being deposited in the wrong places, especially in cellular level, right, that causes mitochondrial dysfunction, increases oxidative stress, and most importantly, it disrupts calcium signaling. And when the communication breaks down, it becomes the major cause of over 150 degenerative diseases that we are familiar with. Here's one research. It says a wide range of calcium signaling systems that control specific functions of different cell types, and also this ongoing transcriptional processes happening in the cell, right, needs to maintain the integrity and stability of this cell-specific signaling system. So calcium ion is all about signaling, right? However, it says these homeostatic systems are highly plastic and can undergo a process of phenotypic remodeling, right? And such subtle dysregulation of calcium signals have been linked to some of the major diseases in humans, such as cardiac disease, schizophrenia, bipolar, Alzheimer's disease, and I can add all this other like arrhythmia and heart palpitation, metabolic syndrome, whether it's Parkinson's, ALS, autoimmune disease. I mean, the list goes on and on. And right now, there's so many research that is focusing on actually zeroing in, you know what, this may be the cause, initial cause, that could cause all the degenerative diseases as we age. And there was really nothing that could reverse this. Imagine you're 50 or 60 and then you get this bone scan and you find yourself to be, oh, wow, already an osteopenia and osteoporosis. Don't just look at fracture risk. It's about all the displaced calcium in cellular level that's causing this kind of a havoc. So this is what we need to look at. When cellular calcification happens, and this happens with osteoporosis, osteopenia, plus age 35, already starts to happen, you're going to get oxidative stress, calcium signaling breakdown, mitochondrial dysfunction, and cellular inflammation that leads to degenerative diseases, which accompany chronic inflammation and also autoimmune response as well, all right? Mitochondria free radical theory says a large accumulation of calcium ion inside of mitochondrial membranes induce the production of reactive oxygen species, all the free radicals that causes damage to DNA, RNA, and proteins, which result in cell mutation and is the main driving force for aging and cancer. And guess what? More research shows that if this starts to happen, our cells lose the capacity even to repair, right? So mutation will go on because you lose the ability to repair, right? Dr. Robert Heaney said, of course, all of these diseases may have many causes, but they also all have one thing in common, calcium deficiency. It's ironic how you may still have enough protein calcium in your system, but your body still experiences ionic calcium deficiency and still break down your bones and get all the calcium deposited in your cellular level, disrupts calcium signaling, causes oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction. And there's another research shows how that if you're a woman with low bone density, you're more than twice likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. Look at this research. And basically it says collectively, the available data show that perturbed cellular calcium homeostasis plays a prominent role in the pathogenesis of Alzheimer's disease. And this is how ionic calcium signaling looks like. You see amplitude modulation, frequency modulation, AM, FM, you know how the old radio used to use it. This is how our body communicates. Very precise signaling, very complex system. It's incredible how this is happening in cellular level, right? This is how our cells know how to make which proteins and then how to fold it, all of that, and where to send it. All these processes is regulated by this signaling, right? Electrical signaling. That's what it is. This is what calcium is all about. It's all about communication. But this breaks down as we age because of cellular calcification. So I'd like to introduce to you anti-orbital ionic calcium called AIC. It looks same as regular calcium carbonate, but we incorporated what's called weak anti-bonding or anti-orbital bonding. It took 10 years of intense research and development for this, but then usually this weak bonding where the calcium atom is loosely attached to the carbonate group, right? Because of the weak bonding, the calcium ion can be easily knocked off and be absorbed in our system in ionic form. This weak bonding is very difficult to maintain, but we had a technological breakthrough actually to keep it stable in room temperature. No other molecule on Earth naturally can have this weak bonding stable. This is what anti-orbital bonding is. This is when the atomic orbitals come in a way that leads to predominantly destructive interference. So they don't want to stay together. It's at a higher level of energy and it wants to come apart. But we managed to keep it together just enough so that when you take it, right, we actually mix this with water, 1:100 ratio, and then you drink it. When it comes to the stomach lining, it just disintegrates. And this is how the weak anti-bonding looks like compared to regular calcium chemical bonding that you find in any other substance on Earth. That's why you need the strong stomach acid and the help of peptide and then vitamin D. You bring this into your system in protein-bound form. This is how the chemical equation looks like. It brings 2 calcium ions and oxygen and carbon dioxide. It's 200 times more soluble and 3 times faster in chemical reaction. But look at this. When it disintegrates, it leaves stable oxygen, stable carbon dioxide, and 2 calcium ions, right? So it cannot recombine again. So this 2 extra calcium ion is absorbed into our system through osmotic pressure and diffusion, right? It's very unique. That's why this is the only true ionic calcium supplement. Even though this is man-made, in its application, it just comes into your system as oxygen, carbon dioxide, and calcium ion. Nothing unnatural about this. And our body needs to maintain about 200 to 250 milligram of calcium has to be in ionic form. And we're just adding 5 to 8 milligram per dose. Very small amount, right? And it works together with water molecule in absorption. And that's why it has also very unique physical property that when you leave it out there, it actually evaporates together with water because it's kind of attached to water molecules, right? And it is absorbed in our system in ionic form, right? You don't need energy. So we call it passive transport, right? No ATP required, no stomach acid required, no vitamin D required. It's not absorbed through small intestine, but absorbed directly through stomach lining in ionic form. Enough for our body to pick it up and start physiological responses that could lead to building strong bone and clear calcification all throughout our body. And these are calcium channels, how the calcium ion is absorbed. And so here is a summary. AIC passive transport is that it goes into stomach, no digestion needed, directly as ionic calcium, and it triggers physiological responses. Regular calcium, right, it has to be digested with the help of peptides and vitamin D. It is absorbed as protein calcium, and it enters your system as inactive calcium, more like a standby calcium. And if you can utilize it well because of your lifestyle, that's great. But a lot of people, especially as we're getting older, it's harder to utilize it. So what is physiological effects of anti-orbital calcium? It lasts about 4 hours in our system, and then it triggers strong osteoblast. It's picked up by pituitary gland, and it triggers thyroid to release calcitonin, and then it triggers osteoblast, right? So while this goes up and down, strong bone building process is triggered. So strong, it's like when we're building bone when we're younger as kids, right? And this is a natural process to build bone, right? We're not tweaking with any of the bone metabolism here, right? We're triggering the very natural process because we're only putting very little. It's not going to cause hypercalcemia either. 4.3 to 5.6 is the normal range. We're only adding 0.1 to 0.2, which our body can handle very well, because up to 8 milligram is mild hypercalcemia. Yeah, so what's adding 0.1, 0.2? But our body is very sensitive to the fluctuation of ionic calcium, right? By just triggering just tiny bit, we can start this hormonal cascade to build strong bones. So I've probably seen this in a medical textbook, but then if calcium level rises, then it increases calcium deposition in bones. If calcium ion level is too low, then parathyroid hormone is engaged to release calcium from bones. But by putting ionic calcium from outside, it inhibits overactive parathyroid hormone, and it triggers thyroid hormone, and it can start bone building process. So AIC calcium not only activates protein calcium that we couldn't use, it navigates calcium and also access phosphorus in our system and bring it all back to our bone to build a strong bone. But at the same time, it actually clears all the displaced calcium in our system, even in cellular level, to restore cellular health as well. So AIC calcium, it does this without any side effects. It builds stronger bone, right? It also regulates the hormonal response, right? And it fulfills, satisfies ionic calcium deficiency that happens with aging. It's important to know what is a calcification factor in our body is. If you multiply concentration of calcium with phosphorus, and if it is greater than 60 milligrams per deciliter, then the calcification happens in your body. As you grow older, we constantly stay in calcification mode. So slowly, we're accumulating calcium all throughout our body. But what happens if ionic calcium triggers the bone building process? It takes all the excess calcium as well as excess phosphorus back to your bone. It brings this calcification factor down significantly. So you can finally come out of calcification mode so that decalcification can happen, right? So most people fall under category A. As they age, your body has this perceived ionic calcium deficiency, and parathyroid hormone-led bone resorption leads to calcification and degenerative diseases. If you're a more health-conscious person, you're in category B, where you get good calcium from diet, you do exercise, good vitamin D and vitamin K, you utilize more protein-bound calcium in your system, so less parathyroid hormone-led bone resorption. Good health, but you're delaying this process 5, 10, 15 years, right? Eventually, it's going to happen as we age. But now, a new category is created with AIC therapy. We can trigger thyroid hormone-led bone building, and it balances calcium homeostasis, and decalcification happens, and even we could reverse degenerative diseases. We're currently doing a collaborative study with Hallym University in South Korea for postmenopausal osteoporosis. This is a human study. And then we're also doing a study together with the Winthrop Rockefeller Cancer Institute in Arkansas for multiple myeloma case. And these are to be published within 2 years. And we already have amazing results from them. They're sharing their results with us. And then I guess it's really important that I make a disclaimer and claim at the same time, is that we only make one scientific claim, that through AIC, we found a way to elevate ionic calcium level slightly, right? And this is from the Rockefeller Cancer Institute. And then everything else is actually our natural physiological response to the rise of ionic calcium. And this is within very safe level, right? Okay. If you put vitamin C to vitamin C deficient person, you're going to have some physiological response, right? Same. You're putting ionic calcium into your system in a very safe level, and we're getting some physiological response, and the following is kind of responses that we've been getting. So it is really important that we still need to get enough calcium in our system that our body needs, right? But then by putting calcium in ionic form, just enough to trigger the responses, we can better utilize protein-bound calcium that we get from food and from other sources, right? And not only that, as we're building strong bone, we can decalcify our body, even from cellular level, that could actually enhance mitochondrial function, eliminate oxidative stress at cellular level, and restore calcium signaling. So let's look at anti-orbital calcium and diseases. I'm going to go straight to osteoporosis because that's what we've been talking about, right? Long-term study done in Denmark shows that 35,000 people, right? If their bone was stronger in their 50s, they actually lived 11.6 years longer. But now even babies are born with calcium deficiency, so that's very serious. We have published the animal study that shows that this AIC calcium in bone building capacity, it is 100 times more effective than regular calcium, right? We did a bone break test and also bone density test as well. And as we removed the ovaries from the rats and induced osteoporosis, you can see here that ovary ectomized rats start to lose bone mass rapidly. And you can see here that bone resorption protein C-terminal, CTX, is increasing. But by adding AIC, we can see here that let's go back to normal bone density, as well as it actually reduces a bone resorption indicator here, even better than the control group, okay? You can see here, this is how the human bone density looks like. We reach the peak in age 30 to 35, and then from then on, it's downhill because osteoclastic activity supersedes osteoblast activity. But then it's actually worse for females because of the hormonal changes that they go through. But here's one male had pretty bad bone density here. For his age, he was way below the bottom bracket, close to osteoporosis, but within about 6-month period of time, being able to climb up all the way to the median for his age, which is normal bone density level, right? A jump like that hasn't been really seen anywhere else. You can see here, this person was, you can see by the graph, a female, that you see here that 67-year-old from T-score all the way down to, I guess, osteopenia, the lower bracket, being able to bring it up all the way up there, right? And then this person was also always all the way down here, severe osteoporosis. This is a female, as you can see by the shape of the graph, but then able to bring it up close to osteopenia level in relatively very short period of time, right? Between 3 and 4 month period of time. So this is really good cases, right? And then you can see here, about 3 months of taking AIC from the red level, which is osteoporosis, going all the way to green level. This kind of change hasn't been really observed elsewhere. And this person here had multiple measurements, started out as a median average for her age, but then if you're already 58-year-old, then you're in osteopenia level, but then it's climbing up, and within 5 months, way above top bracket level right here, right? And then this is from Calcium and Bone Health Institute with the volunteers. This is before and after. The blue is before and green is after. You can see the significant jumps that they had. Everyone has, of course, different period of time, but then a lot of these tests were done within 1 year. But then you can see a significant the jump. As you can see here, -1 is actually the osteopenia threshold level. But then like this person all the way down in osteoporosis to the positive level in green level. And this kind of change experienced by these many people is really incredible. And female is, you can see more people are down here below -1, right? And then many of them just jumped back to the normal bone density level, right? This is for females. Let's look at what happens in our mouth, right? This is a infected tooth that causes infection, causes the loss of bones in the area. But then after extraction and cleaning, it just gets filled up within 10 months without bone graft. But not just this, this person actually, his bone density, overall skeletal bone density increased within this period of time. So it's not just filling up the cavitation, but actually strengthening entire skeleton happens. This girl, age 10, recommended amputation because of necrosis. And after about 1 month taking AIC therapy, no amputation, everything normalized. Here's a bone fracture, usually heals up twice as fast. And this is steroid-induced osteoporosis with autofracture. All of that is resolved just taking AIC therapy, okay? Osteoporosis drugs out there, we do know that it comes with many side effects. And then by trying to keep the calcium in our bones, right, and depriving actually our body from using this precious ionic calcium, a lot of drugs out there just focusing on slowing down osteoclastic activity to keep the calcium in there, but it actually becomes dead bone mass. It actually compromises bone health. These are the side effects. And AIC therapy is not really focused on preventing fracture, but it's focused on restoring bone metabolism, healthy bone metabolism. That's why it's able to grow bone naturally and strong at the same time. I guess the added benefit is decalcification. That's actually my main focus. Decalcification happening in cellular level, that's what's been really helping the patients. Here, even for kids who could not really reach their full potential after taking AIC, some of these kids were able to really experience the leap and be able to attain the stature that they wanted. And of course, you can find a lot of studies out there how ionic calcium is good for ADHD and even autism spectrum disorder and all that. And actually, Maragen is our strongest product that we recommend all the doctors to start out with this to actually reverse the disease momentum. See, the disease didn't happen just one day. It's been accumulating. The momentum's been building up, right? And then all that momentum, a lot of it had to do with disrupting cellular signaling, and mitochondrial dysfunction happens, and then the oxidative stress happens because of that. And we got to somehow stop that, right? So we want to go strong in the beginning, right, to reverse that. That's why AIC therapy is not a symptom-targeted therapy, right? I know there are a lot of patients out there just looking for relief from symptoms first, but we cannot direct where ionic calcium to go, right? Our body directs it, right? It's working in the cellular level, right? And then it turns on certain physiological responses that brings in healing. Our body has amazing capacity to heal itself, and AIC therapy is really aiding and helping that healing process. So this itself is not curing disease. This is actually providing amazing environment for our body to heal itself. So just looking at closely the dental aspect of it, we had some cases where the doctors thought that the implant was impossible, right? But then the patient came back after taking AIC therapy, and then the dentist was kind of blown away. And now the implant was possible because of AIC. And I've shown this before, but then here, even for the younger people, you know how as we age, our teeth get longer because the bone underneath recedes, but see, there are a lot of very active stem cells in our jaw, in the alveolar bone, all the ligaments, right? And those stem cells, once you're able to trigger, multiply it, then it does wonders, right? So how is ionic calcium therapy related to stem cell? Believe it or not, stem cell activation, it's all ionic calcium process. It says calcium-mediated signaling is essential for maintenance of stem cells and for promoting their development and differentiation, right? So if you actually have ionic calcium homeostasis broken, these stem cells are not maintained. Stem cells are not getting the proper signal to do its job. So we do have the dental pulp stem cells and periodontal ligament stem cells. All these are very responsive to the concentration of ionic calcium. And it can synthesize into root cementum and or osteoblasts to build alveolar bone. Look at this research. It shows how active these periodontal ligament stem cells be when you actually maintain or adjust the ionic calcium level. And then the conclusion says that you need to have 2-to-1 ratio from ionic calcium to phosphorus ion level. That's the optimal ratio. If this is off, forget about really activating these stem cells, right? So here's research shows that you can see here, calcium level is way smaller than phosphate level, while it has to be 2-to-1 the other way, right? So we cannot expect to have these stem cells become active when all this ratio is off. And this happens to everybody as we age. We have just too much calcium problems. What good is having all those expensive procedures done when you keep losing the bone? AIC calcium is great in actually eliminating the body-wide inflammation, because all these disease has chronic inflammation as well. And this is the test done. And you can see how all these inflammation markers are dropping significantly. This is actually a very serious viral infection that causes cytokine storm, right? Very serious cases. We had 7 patients put on, and then they all recovered. And this is very recent. That's all I can say, right? And you can jump right into arthritis. We had like patients with 15 years of arthritis pain just disappearing under AIC therapy. And a lot of that had to do with, first of all, it removes all the calcification around the joints. And that's, I think, the first step towards really being able to experience the relief from pain, right? This is a calcific tendonitis case. With AIC, all this calcification in our body disappears, simply disappears. Where do you think all this calcium is going? It's navigated back to your bone to build stronger bone. That's why we're able to see the rise of bone mass happening rapidly. And also corrects immune response. I'm not going to go into how it affects the autoimmune response, but we had amazing results. Doesn't matter what kind of autoimmune disease, whether it's lupus, celiac disease, Crohn's disease, whether it's eczema, vitiligo, multiple sclerosis, amazing response because of ionic calcium's role in correcting immune response. And there are tons of research out there that shows that before this autoimmune response comes, there is breakdown of calcium homeostasis that causes calcium signaling disruption, right? So your T cell, your B cell, they're wrongly activated and presenting part of our body, something to be destroyed. And here you can see how extracellular acidosis and immune response. Calcium is probably the best agent out there to neutralize acidity in our system, right? So if your body is acidic, ionic calcium can bring it down to ideal pH 7.4, better than anything else. In order to control body pH, right, especially patients, cancer patients, their body pH is very highly acidic. And then ionic calcium can go and neutralize lactic acid, right? Gout patients also benefits a lot because it comes with acidity, and then ionic calcium can actually bring ideal pH while all these acid crystals can dissolve. And also repairs cartilage because we talked about stem cells, the chondrocytes. It says here that cartilage formation requires a concerted action of numerous intracellular signal transduction molecules, many of which are sensitive to the changes of intracellular calcium concentration. It's all about the mesenchymal stem cells in our body, right? Including chondrocytes. If you have the right environment, you can actually trigger stem cells to multiply, right? And of course, reduces pain because of alkalizing effect, right? 10 years of rheumatoid pain resolved with AIC. This kind of thing happens because it corrects immune response, right? And clears calcification, reduces pain, rebuilds cartilage. We had patients with crooked fingers able to live normal life, right? And it's incredible how just triggering this response to clear calcification and really empower 60 trillion cells to function properly can do for our body. Swelling and pain of arthritis improved significantly with AIC therapy. Swelling and pain gone. You play golf again, right? Knee arthritis improved so much. We have tons of these testimonies you can find on AICtherapy.com. And this is the product that we use to control arthritis, especially. Neurodegeneration, autoimmunity, right? And infectious diseases, right? You know, virus and bacteria and all the pathogens need phosphorus to multiply. It's their building block. If you don't have phosphorus, they cannot multiply, right? Because that's the building block to grow, right? When you are building strong bone, it takes not only calcium, but also phosphorus back to your bone. And also, you know that when our body's pH is ideal 7.4, pathogens have difficulty multiplying as well. And ionic calcium also binds to certain place in RNA and stops, right, the growth, right? There's a heart disease. My goodness, we had patients who were had scheduled actually to have the pacemaker implant done, but didn't have to. Arrhythmia patients who got off their medications. All these things happen. Diabetes. You go to ADA site, American Diabetes Association site, and you'll see that insulin secretion and sensitivity is all about ionic calcium process. Right? And there are several researches that shows how putting ionic calcium in our system, right, can really regulate diabetes. Right? Cancer, my goodness. Let me just show you, 80-year-old patient, last stage multiple myeloma, right? The chemotherapy failed, so her kidney was damaged. So she came to us, and then within 1 year of time, you can see that her blood work, everything normalizes. She was declared cancer-free. But not only that, you can see here, right, this is how she improved. What happened to her bone density? This is 80-year-old woman. November 20, 2013, that's when she measured, minus 3.6, anything below minus 2.5 is osteoporosis. And then back to normal level, minus 0. Not even osteopenia, normal level. Her GFR kidney that's destroyed, so was looking into dialysis, 12 to 62, full recovery. And all this happened under AIC therapy, right? But you can see here, this is how AIC works. She experienced improved energy, the body temperature rises, but it's not always uphill, right? She experiences, you can see that, oh, it's going down, and here it dips again, right? It seems like it's going up, it dips again, right? We cannot direct ionic calcium. It goes into our system, and it does its own work, right? You know what? Just keep going. Just keep going. It's working in there. So one of the good measure is actually measuring bone density, but you don't want to really do that under X-ray too often, right? For cancer patients, bone density doesn't really rise that much because there's a bigger issue to resolve. A lot of calcification too for cancer patients. But then once your body's ready, you can see that it just stays up there. This is how AIC therapy works, not symptom-targeted therapy, but from cellular level, right? We're helping our cells to recover and then get rid of one of the major causes that led to these degenerative diseases. So anti-orbital calcium products, we have about 6 products. You can all find this in aictherapy.com. And then some of the common conditions that we have treated, right? Arrhythmia, heart palpitation, mitral valve prolapse, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, thrombosis, hemolytic anemia, right? Autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, epilepsy, amazing results for epilepsy, asthma, COPD, glaucoma, cataract, right? Chromosome 8 syndrome, chronic kidney disease, a lot of CKD patients, just like this lady with multiple myeloma, her kidney function improved from GFR 12 to 62. Of course, it resolves kidney stones and all that, but it also stirs up your own stem cells to go and repair. Right? Very strong stem cell action, right? Mitochondrial disease, arthritis, gout, CPPD, inflammations, Parkinson's. We had patients with the tremors, it goes away. ALS patients who could not move neck and arms and feet able to move again. Alzheimer's patients, we had a case where about 3 years of dementia, could not remember anybody, beginning to remember again. HIV, my goodness, as you can see, I mean, the viral load just dips down to from 4 digits to 2 digits, right? Autoimmune disease. I mean, we can go on and on, all kinds of cancer. Well, thank you for your attentiveness. Right after my presentation, Dr. Vidya Murni will continue to go deeper on AIC therapy, sharing with you many clinical cases based on her own experience. Thank you. Dr. Murni, the stage is all yours.